Yeah. It's here, it goes here. This is the thing, the trick is getting this, then as you throw the hip, getting that back again.
Oh, that's the first one. Then I take it back.
Yeah, that's the tick. You'll get it. That's the way it happens.
Will you keep? I always keep going.
Yeah, I have to stop myself here. Stop looking together and then keep going out there. Right.
Forget it, Robert.
Elvis is tired.
That's right.
Okay, they're in absolutely no particular order. If we don't get to your question, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll have another time we can do it. I'm just going to take the first one off the top of the list. Is the phrasing of music, 8 measures, etc., important for choreography of competition routine, or does the phrasing not matter?
Oh, God.
I can't. I plead Fifth Amendment.
Okay, you want me to give it a try then?
Okay.
Okay, I think phrasing is important, particularly if you're going to put routines together for your demonstration purposes, right? Okay, some dances more important than others. Everybody knows that in international style competitions, everybody praises their possibility of Spanish event automatically. So that eliminates that, all right? But dances like samba and cha-cha, a lot of dancers feel they dance from one bar to the next. It's a rhythmic dance, and there's not a lot of distinction between, phrasing. Sometimes you can hardly pick it out in Latin music. But in some dances like rumba, the 7th and 8th bars give you definite clues that the phrase is coming to an end. And a lot of people feel like your 7 and 8 should be the finishing of movements. 7 and 8 should be your highlights. Now that's just an opinion. Myself, I think that to dance to different pieces of music in competitions and to spend a lot of time on phrasing is a little bit counterproductive. Unless you're dancing to a particular piece of music and it fits the music and you can also use it in competition. Do you understand what I mean? In other words, your demonstration music is phrased. Samba and cha-cha is less important. Possibility takes care of itself, and jive less important. So, but I do think phrasing is important, particularly if you're going to use it for shows, because it's got to fit the music. So if you want to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, phrase all your work. Take it away.
Okay. Do you want to go down? I think, why don't we have open call here?
Open call.
Open call?
Yeah.
Well, I myself never thought about phrasing, except like the paso, like the bing and the bang, and that stuff. I mean, one time, way back when I was winning, or whatever I was doing at the time, I took a lesson from a coach who tried to get me to phrase everything. And it just blew my mind. Like, after every 8 measures, something's like in the cha-cha and the rumba, and it just blew my mind. And, so I didn't, as of those dances, but the paso doble, I always phrase because of the highlights. But other than,
I think if you're an innovator, if you tend to think in terms of impact and choreography and getting something to say something within a span of time, sometimes you can say it within 8 measures, sometimes you can't. But I certainly wouldn't, if I was about to do the most wonderful part of a grouping and it was on the 7th and 8th measure, I wouldn't cut it short because the phrasing told me to. I would favor the artistic endeavor rather than phrasing. Possibly, I think you always should phrase. That way, if they don't play Spanish dance, you're all screwed. Everybody goes, no.
What I found, and again, I'm not doing some of the things they're doing, but I like to hit certain pieces of music, even in swing or when I do cha-cha or whatever. I like to hit certain things, and if I can hit it, fine. If you don't hit it, it's not that important. But if you do hit it, if you see 4 couples doing the same song, and some of them hit the phrase, they look better to you aesthetically than the people who do not.
We don't have that advantage, except in Spanish gypsy dance once in a while.
I think, though, from my opinion, I try to get my couples to, in general, have a build up on the 7th and 8th measure, and I say, you know, that's fine. If it works out that you start on the right measure and they don't mess up the music or something, you're in an advantage. If not, it's not the end of the world.
I have one more little guide though. When you don't know what music you're going to have, and when you're doing things that have highlights, there's a downbeat music and upbeat music. 1, 3, 5, and the 1, 3, 5s, and 7s tend to be your stronger counts to do dynamic things on, because they tend to, you're going to find music that embellishes that more often than the offbeat. So if you're going to hit a big line and I turn in 2 and 3, 4, 5, it's not as good as 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your uneven numbers tend to have more impact when you're choreographing.
When I see couples like I know Debbie and people like this that when they dance, when you do a competition, they say you're not dancing to a particular record, you don't know it necessarily. When you go out and do your shows, it's a different story. And most of the people here do shows, and I think that's more time to phrase there. Interesting.
Okay, would a judge's eye be caught by a trick step more than a basic movement given both
So I didn't write this down.
are well executed? Okay, would a judge's eye be caught by a trick step more than a basic movement given both are well executed? Or would a basic movement done well attract the judge's eye more than a trick done well? Let's have open forum here.
I just had the opportunity of working with I think a very good couple in rumba, and they wanted to know what I thought as far as, do I think they need more dramatics in their rumba or whatever. And I had said to them, if I had a girl that did rumba leg action like that, I would leave well enough alone, because that's what was making them win that dance. So basically, I feel, if, like, take rumba, for example, as a basic dance, I like to see the leg action, all that, the strength and that thing. I mean, choreography is important, but that doesn't make me pick who would be my first or second.
I think it's like everybody in a room trying to talk at one time. That's what you're really doing when you dance. You're all trying to talk. So once in a while, you feel if you talk louder, they'll stop and look at you. And I think your highlights tend to be that little, hey, look at me. But I think that what you have to realize is that in front or into and out of the highlight, the characteristic of the dance is of utmost importance. And I don't remember once yet in my career marking a person in any order in a final based on how well they did a split, an oversway, or back bend. I tend to judge that in comparison and very heavily in with their style, their basic, their understanding of the basic action and reaction of the dance. I really think basics are what you end up, feeling that your marks are based on. I think performance is the other part of it. I think that highlights are also for the competitor, aren't they? Let's think about it, guys. We like highlights because they give us a chance to kind of go, wow, once in a while. Too many of them, no. And certainly, no, we don't look at them, we don't prefer to see them in place of basics. But I think they're entertaining for us. They give us something to entertain with. And I think they do tend to attract attention. But I think too much is a good thing. I think everything in moderation, spaced well, is important.
I agree with that. I think that when you're judging and somebody does something that is striking, you look over there, but then you will look back to somebody else and wait to look back at that couple again when they're doing another movement that contains a basis that you can see the strength of their actual dancing. You won't mark that trick, but you'll be attracted to that couple and you'll say, I'm going to look back again when they finish that trick and when they start really dancing. But if you keep looking back and there's another trick and another trick and another trick, it loses its effectiveness, I think. So really, I agree, it does have to have a good combination.
I see a lot of couples that dance that, like when people were doing a lot of the dance, that they thought whoever did the biggest lifts, they were the best dancers. Some of my skaters got into the competitions and won all the competitions doing all the lifts, but they couldn't dance a step. They won all the competitions because they did all the lifts, and I thought that was wrong. That's my own opinion.
No, I think most of it's been said. I think that the highlights are important. Obviously, the basics work and the character of the dance. And all I can say is when a person does a highlighted movement or a trick of any kind, that's got to be extra slick and well done.
And especially whatever follows it has to be. I mean, the next 4 or 5 basics have to be your best because we're going to be looking at you.
That's right.
If you were saying, hey, look at me, make sure you give us something to look at afterwards. It's true. And you tend once in a while to throw away those basics. Sometimes they become the little fill-ins in between your goodies when you're new at this. I think you more experienced competitors have learned to savor those basics as important now.
Okay. This one starts out with, be honest.
Bears down.
When you have so little time per couple, what do you look for first in a competition? Technically correct footwork or nicely performed choreography?
I'll start. The very first thing, obviously, is the first thing you see, which is their bodies standing there next to one another, which is their physical presence or look. If a couple walks out and trips and falls, or if they walk out and all of a sudden hair falls down to one side, or the guy's catsuit is like this, or the girl's dress doesn't fit, something's hanging out here. Obviously, the picture, first of all, has to be good. They have to be well dressed, not extravagantly overdone, because that can be too gaudy of a costume. It has to be in good taste. They have to be well groomed. They have to form a nice picture. That's the very first thing. The person walks in a room, the same evaluation you give to that person. Even a speaker walking up, you start evaluating that person before they say a word. Okay, and then from there on, you start into the dancing. If a person has a lousy picture, they'll lose out to a couple who's equally good, but looks better. Okay, that's the first thing. There are many other things, but that's just number one.
I think one thing that probably the person who really has forte is Vernon, who always, when he's worked with us or himself in his own dancing, made such a production out of taking the position for the dance, and that it was just as important what you're doing when you're not dancing.
I used to have the feeling that the competition started when you arrived at the hotel. I'm not kidding. Yeah, your deportment, everything. I don't say you have to be what you aren't, but I think you have to watch the way you act when you're at a competition. I think that inadvertently we're all human and opinions can be formed for all the wrong reasons sometimes. It has nothing to do with dancing, but I think part of professionalism is your off-the-floor appearance too. I would like to say though, there are certain criteria that you have to think of in a competition with a limited time. Choreography is only important in the overall. It's probably more important in a demonstration than it is. We don't really, to be honest with you, if you did your first 8 measures and did them again and again and again and again, we may never see the same part of that 8 measures. We don't know. We haven't seen your whole routine. So choreography from the standpoint of beginning to end is not the most important thing. But I think the quality of the performance, not wasting a measure, is important. I think the first thing I look for is, I would hope you all keep time, but unfortunately you don't. You all are not abstaining from the fact that you sometimes rush or sometimes are off the beat. Poor timing is the first reason I won't mark a couple. Okay, bad timing. Rhythmic expression is important, with the dancing, and then from then on, first of all, guys, when it gets down to the final, this Latin event or the modern event, it's also damn excellent. I mean, the semifinal, it's also excellent that it really gets down, and believe it or not, your personal preference does play into it. It really does. You have certain things. I know a couple that says, well, we know which marks are yours on the judging sheet without even looking at your letter because we know what you like and we know who won. Okay, you have certain things. I tend to be a rhythmic sort of person. I like the rhythmic thing, and I like to show quality in dancing. But no, in answer to the thing on the paper, choreography isn't going to win your competition. It's the quality of the performance and the consistency of the couple. Consistently correct.
Well, the thing I look for is that everything you're doing is very natural. That everything you're doing you like. Because there are so many things that when I'm judging and I've got those 10 seconds, I could be looking and at a step in your routine that you yourself know shouldn't be there because you don't like it, if you haven't had the time to take it out. And at that instant, I'm looking at it, and I look and I say, well, they don't feel at home with that. It doesn't look like it's natural to them. Like, you could be like a light bulb in your whole routine. That music starts, and then all of a sudden, I feel, I can tell from just looking at you through your face when something isn't, either one went blank or my impression is when I'm looking, I want everything to be natural. If you're going to do that trick and you're going to whatever. If you're gonna do a split, it's gotta be natural for the girls. I don't wanna see the girl who can't do a split attempting to do it, or a kick and the girl struggling to do that kick, and, like me. Or trying to do a ripple, and all I see is this. This is not natural. You see? So the thing is, when you have those 10 seconds, to me, because I'm a very emotional dancer, I want to see that emotion, and I want to see it to be at home with you, natural. And if you're working too hard, that plays against you with me. I mean, because then I feel that you're struggling to do all these things. But when you got the 10 seconds, to me, I'm looking at who is natural, what they're doing, and
You realize that it's not an exaggeration, 10 seconds. Do you know that? Really? And the first time you see someone, if it's a negative impression, if you have stumbled, and maybe you've never stumbled in that step before, it can create an impression that's not the true impression, but it was the impression in that round. And that's why I say, over the long haul, the best will win.
Yeah, I think, you know, your first impression is like Ron said, a lot of times the look. But I also think that technically,
I think people are kind of,
I know that could be misinterpreted.
don't misinterpret what I
That's not
said.
judging.
That's the very first instant. Following that, you start the whole rest of your procedure, as Vernon was talking about, choreography, the dancing, the technique, the impact, the timing, whatever. But
Right, yeah.
obviously, if a couple's not on time, you're never going to look at them again. You'll check them out at the end of the dance, see if they're on time or not.
Dancing to music, not at it.
But anyway, I just wanted to clarify that. He said first,
Right.
not the
Good
rest.
job. We got that. But I think that technically correct footwork and well-performed choreography are not mutually exclusive. I don't think you can start your routine and have a choreography section that your feet are going to be flopping all over, and then have a basic section that you're going to do fabulous footwork. I mean, it just doesn't happen that way. It's all part of the same package.
When in doubt, leave it out. If it's not working, change it. Do something far less difficult that works 99 out of 100 times. Don't take any chances.
Okay, do you personally prefer that a couple not ask you why you mark them a particular way? Or is it okay with you? If so, when and how? Oh, we could have lines in the next competition.
One thing I say is, I don't mind somebody asking me how I mark it, as long as they want to hear the answer. A lot of times they don't want to hear the answer. They're mad because they didn't get a good mark, and so that's why they're asking what you looked at. If they're interested in finding out why your mark's a certain way, then I don't mind the question. But other than that, forget it.
you know, sometimes, like Vernon said, you have those 10, 15 seconds to judge you, okay? And it's really not a fair way of doing it. But sometimes I have the opportunity to to work with that person. Now, please, I'm not looking for work. Okay, but sometimes you get the opportunity to work with this couple, and then you think, well, that's what I didn't like about them. Because I have the time to look at them over and over and study it. But for those 10 seconds or 15 seconds, I know something's offending me. But because I haven't had the time to do it, and then they come up and ask me. I love the ones who come up and ask me and say, why didn't you mark me into the 12? Hell, when there's 24 or 18 couples, how the hell do I remember why I didn't mark you into the 12? It's bad enough you coming in the 6th and asking me what I did. But, and like I said, I'm not looking for lessons. It's just that sometimes...
I said to a couple in the same vein today, I was working with them this morning. I said, you know, I said that's what I didn't like about it. That's why they said you were one of our worst matches in the competition. And, you know, we feel you're entitled. They weren't saying it in a negative way, but they wanted to know what it was that I saw that was flawless. Sometimes it's not flawless. Sometimes, you know, if all of you went out and danced perfectly, all of you would still come in 6th in a final. You know that. Because we have to choose. Now think about that, and that's kind of a rewarding way of thinking about it all. But unfortunately, many times it's an impression that we do like or don't like or balance or something like that. And it is true that once you've worked with a couple, you get to have an attempt at helping or correcting what it is that you're not marking in their dancing. And it can tend to lead towards you marking that couple better futuristically if they adapt what you feel is lacking in their dancing. So it looks like the couple's both marks. Doesn't it? But however, doesn't the judge have to mark, teach, coach, and judge by what their preferences are? And if a couple adapts a little bit of what you feel is missing, then there is a more likely chance So if that's called political, maybe that's the answer to it. I don't think that's political. I think that's just the way it happens. You do get to know a couple's dancing, and if you're able to help it in the direction that you prefer, then you are more likely to be a better judge for them if they dance well. Or you could be a worse judge because you've seen them dance well in the lesson. That's
Okay.
happened too.
Any other on that?
Well, I'll just go be very brief. All I want to say is that I don't mind at all if a couple ask me why I'm marking a certain way, but they have to be prepared for the possibility that it was 2 days ago and I've judged 10 couples since then, and I don't know who the heck they are.
I think
So
you have to
that's
be
very
ready for
possible,
the,
you know.
I think you have to also be ready for the answer, I liked 3 other couples better. Because sometimes it's that simple. Boy, that's no information. I know it's not. What a frustrating answer to get. What is it? I don't know. They made me mark them over you. And you make me mark you over them. I don't know what it is. Let's have a coaching lesson and find out. That's not looking for work either. But sometimes a couple makes you mark them. Have you ever watched a couple and you said, I don't know what happened to that couple tonight, but I couldn't take my eyes off of them. There's an ingredient. We're human, and performing is an emotional thing. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. And it's generally when both of you are on, both of you are clicking, both of you get it from each other.
Great. Okay. The smaller couples really have a disadvantage at being seen on the floor. And, well, that's one question. Smaller couples, well, I think it's obvious that it's not true
Obviously not
myself.
true.
Seeing as, well, we've had stoppers who are a short couple, and then we've had Donnie and Dana who are a tall couple. But I don't think that's true.
And you have in our American South, the 6 people who made the finals were all
All
short.
different heights.
And then you had the Jolly Green Giants, Chuck and Benita, who were the only ones in there. They were 6 foot, but everyone else, Joe and Jan.
They all look like they're running under redwood.
So I mean, and they were all. So I mean, I never.
Yeah.
It can only affect what we see if you let it affect your dancing. I think that you just have to, I think there's a dynamic quality in a performance that you can't overlook. It doesn't matter if you're a midget. Really.
Yeah, I really feel like if you're working with tall couples, you have to get them to make the best out of the fact that they have long lines and they can really use that. With small couples, they can be speedy and they can move fast and they can be into the floor. So you've got to dance your best at what you
Taller
are.
couples make bigger mistakes too.
I know we should maybe we make the judges really look at all the couples. Yeah.
Yeah, period.
Yes, of course.
What,
I hope.
I'd love to know who wrote that and talk with it. That's our job. That's what we're there for. They may not look at you more than once.
Because the judge isn't looking when you're looking at them, doesn't mean they're looking at you some other time.
what can you do if you feel you've been judged unfairly?
Shut up.
Nothing.
What can you do if you feel that you've been judged unfairly?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. When I compete, I didn't like a lot of the results. I was one of, like you all are, go back there. I've got sheets still in my drawer, in my, who judged me, who's the Bunko or Louis Rose? To this day, it's so funny. I remember who gave me that lousy fifth when I still won. I mean, right, Debbie, you're like that. I'm like that. I mean, we sit, No, there's nothing wrong with that. I remember who gave me what 15 years ago. And I never let it offend me, and I never went up to them, and I never, ever went up and asked the judge why they did what they did. I was just not that kind of person. What was that question?
What can you do if you feel you've been judged
It's the
unfairly?
way that's worded. The answer has to be nothing. You can't do anything. And if it's a constant judge that you feel you don't want to dance in front of, you can always choose not to go to the concert. Then you're cutting off the nose and spite your face. That's one less time you're going to dance your 4 dances to get good at and be seen by the other 4 judges who maybe you don't feel are biased against you.
I had a couple who
And
didn't.
don't pick and choose your competition for
Yeah.
the judging panel.
I had a couple who didn't come to. I'm not going to mention names. Who didn't come to my comp because they didn't like the panel of judges. Well, I feel I picked the best panel of judges. All the future ex-champions or whatever. And there was a couple who didn't come because, well, I said But I would not think anything less, I mean, that's the way they feel. If I judge them, which I will again on the floor, I'm not, that doesn't, just when, I judge them on that day, but, well, I would never be that way.
Answer is no.
Yeah, nothing.
Remember, on that,
Just go.
on that paper, Judy, unfair is a subjective thing, unfair to them, but fairness may be in the competition as a whole.
I think, well, as far as Ron and I are concerned, we probably, all our couples know that they usually end up telling us, did you know who marked you so-and-so? We're like, what, who? We weren't as concerned with who marked us what as with our actual overall placing. And if we got a bad placing that we thought maybe, we never thought we deserved better. We always thought, we looked at each other and we said, what can we do to make it better? What did we do? Let's really sit down. It couldn't have happened if somebody didn't have something. You gotta really take it as a positive thing that you're gonna work harder for it. If you take it as a negative thing and you walk into a competition thinking you deserve a place, you're not gonna get it.
I have one quick thing. At one of my competitions we put on at the end of our camps, Ron and Liz and Lee and Linda Wakefield were judging the competition. One of the couples came up to me before the competition, and he was from a city called Phoenix, and said that he didn't think it was fair that Lee Wakefield and Linda Wakefield judge him because they didn't know anything about ballroom dancing. This is what they did. I said, why don't you enter it out here, everybody else is, and talk to me afterwards the other work. I found out the reason why. The man does not believe in any rise and fall in balls at all.
Who doesn't?
I can't say names here. I'll tell you later.
Oh, I see.
And he is a teacher on the studio.
You don't mean Lee.
No, Lee. That's why he didn't want to judge.
Utah would sing.
Okay, in competition, does the lady have to have one foot or toe on the floor in a trick at all times? If not, what kinds of tricks are legal and illegal?
We've gotten on the borderline of outrageous with some of these things. And in competitions, we've let an awful lot go by when you get excited and exuberant and something that's supposed to be a leg hook with a foot dragging, this foot comes yay far off the floor. Or you do a layout with the girl, that split thing, that horrible thing from the back that looks like a porno shot. It's gorgeous from the front as long as you can see the lady's face, but from the back you see this leg here and that leg here. And sometimes the lady's legs should get so stretched out it's off the floor. Technically that's a lift. We're not getting nerdsy about it because we don't feel that what you're doing is lift. And sometimes like Liz's throw that she does, where she does throw or jeté, Liz could leap that high by herself, truly could. It's not a sustained lift. So we're trying to be as lenient with that. We don't want to take the excitement out of the dancing for you, but we don't want sustained lifts, and we would like to see one foot in contact with the ground. I don't know if that's the answer, y'all.
Well, yeah, okay. On that exact, we have a move that Ron hooks me under the arm, or I hold his hand. It used to be that he hooked me under his arm, but I hold his hand. I do like a leap in the air, and then I go down.
He jetés
And then I go down to the floor. And we were in England once doing that, and somebody came up to us and asked us about it. And at that time, I think you did have your hand under my arm. So what we did is we put it so that, and we showed them that I could do it without his hand under my arm, and we kept it in our routine. But I did see at the California Star Ball, and I can't remember which comp it was in, but I saw somebody do the cartwheel. And I personally feel that that should not be done. Because a girl, is this one where the torsion where you, I can't do this with my fingers falling off.
It was outlawed as illegal. Okay, the lady steps through this way, and the lady feels that.
Sorry. But, I mean, how could I literally do that on my own, right?
First of all, it's something that once it's started, you can't stop it. You just about nose and couples down. That's why the hip spin, or whatever you want to call that, is not in, it's out. You can't stop it.
That's exactly my point. You said the bum spin has been outlawed? There was somebody did it at the Star Ball, I'm not going to mention who it was, but I almost got all over the place. It was, I was going back a few years when I was dancing in England at Blackpool, I was watching the round before me, the heat before me, and a couple did that bum spin, and the girl went round, and some guy went up in the air, came down, fell on his back.
You mow them down. You can't
The
stop
step
it.
was out.
Anything that can't be arrested, any movement that can't be stopped.
What about spinning handspin, for example?
What did you say?
Spinning handspin, for example, you know, in samba.
The hands, the
Is
sitting
that
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Oh,
That's
It's
not
like
legal.
a, it's
that's
like
like
a
a
horse
horse
and
and
cars.
cart.
Yeah.
That's like a horse and cart.
But can
You're
you-
not
can
in
you
the
stop
air.
that?
We're talking about.
There's no centrifugal force in that. There is a pull to it, but you could stop that if you were aiming towards somebody. It's not really dangerous. But it does get enticing to see how far you can go with something, but just don't go so far that you think it would be misunderstood. You know if you're trying to get away with something or not. And we know when it's something is supposed to be the foot on the floor and it comes up and it shouldn't. I think we can tell that.
Sam,
What?
come
Sam?
on, what
No,
would
he
you say?
was just saying that.
I would think something wrong.
Right.
Right. God damn.
How are these couples supposed to know what's allowed and not allowed?
Well, there are rules.
There are rules.
Be members registered. Join the PDF.
They should actually, I think that should be brought up about that competition, because if you saw that and I saw the cartwheel, it was not policed, and I really think that should be brought up, because then there should be, in the judges, I mean, I know that these guys have a lot of times walked up after they judged and said, I just saw such and such.
You understand the difference between a cartwheel and a floor-rotate throw? That's a totally different. It's not circular and it doesn't have a whipping action. I see it still, and it's very nice to lift the lady up and send her into a floor-rotate. And a lady could essentially jump that high. We see it in jive all the time. You do your little telemark reverse and the lady gets whipped up and into one of those things. She's really being lifted. We are lifting her. Truly, in this little this develope kick that we do, we're lifting the lady. But it's not a sustained lift, and we don't feel you're trying to get away with anything. It's not dangerous from my point of view, those things.
I
If you
actually,
want a list of the steps that are illegal or legal, then it has to be done through the National Council. If you want, I can get that information for you. At the present time, I don't know exactly what step is not.
they don't have a list of steps, they just have the rules according to if you're having your weight supported completely by the man and you're in the air.
Yeah.
But I do think that is a good point, because we did see, I saw and some other people saw, and that probably should be brought up at the next PDF meeting.
And I think as a competitor, if you see someone like that taking your place in the final, I would say something. I'd make a legal complaint. I really would.
Yes, if you see it, you know, if you see it, you should.
I would work too hard to get in that final. If I saw someone that's doing something that I've worked hard not to do, and they're doing it illegal and it's been overlooked, I'd complain about it.
Well, I'm going to do an advertisement for the PDF at the end. Just real quick, the PDF is a professional dancers federation. It's for the competitors or anybody that has
Complain through
anything,
Ronnie. So,
or anybody that has anything to do with competitions. It's a fabulous organization that is a young organization, and we're getting a voice for the competitors. And Ron's the president, and if you want to join it, I know most of you are, then Nick's the vice president.
I need to pay my dues, Ronnie.
On the publicity, but anyway, we'll get your dues. If you want to join, see me before the end of camp. Okay, let's continue. You all should be in it, really. What is the difference in the judges from a coach you never worked with, in the judging from a coach you have never worked with versus one you have? What is the difference in the judging from a coach you have never worked with versus one you have? Go ahead, Ron.
Well, I can say that it's possible that the couples you work with, you know that they do wrong a little more than couples you don't know. So sometimes taking lessons from a coach is not the answer to getting a better mark. Sometimes it works the other way around. But let me just say this. When you judge a competition as a judge, if you're an honest judge, if you're a professional, you judge it as if you don't know any of the couples, you've never taught them before, and you'll never have to teach them again. That's what you have to do to have a fair evaluation of that particular comp. Now, if my brother is dancing with illegal, I couldn't judge him anyway, because it's against the rules. But if he was out there, I'd have to act like we were not related. You have to do that. It's a brand new competition. Everything's a brand new thing. To be judged on its own at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. I have found that I'm always harder on the people that I work with, because
You'll also find other people you haven't worked with, their work, their choreography will tend to be more
and the man, commanding masculine. Those are suggestions.
What does one
What do we
say?
like to say? I think they just said it.
That's a suggestion?
No, what do the judges want to see as far as the lady? Do they want them to be feminine or hard? Do they want the men to be commanding, masculine? What adjectives would you?
Well, I think the man's feminine is the lady.
I feel the same way. You got it made with me, it's man feminine.
No, I think there's a misunderstanding about your identity in dancing. I think that something can be, I think it's so much of what is masculine or what is soft has to do with your intention towards your partner, okay? I can dance, if Liz stood here, I could dance towards Liz in a way that was, I could do my arms that soft and have the feeling that I was dominant to her. I could do my hands that soft and then with a move different. So I think there's a feeling, there's an inward feeling, okay? I think it has a lot, don't misunderstand femininity or lack of strength with soft arms. Soft arms are definitely a part of good dancing. Definitely, fluid arms. So don't think if I keep my wrists stiff and don't let my arms be soft, I'm going to be masculine. I think strength comes through your body stem, through your legs, okay? And I think attitude has a lot to do with what's just being asked.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
what if you can make this male-female relationship happen.
How are your shoes? Did you play them?
I think that especially in rumba, obviously you want to capitalize on that. In rumba or bolero, I think even working on the basics, you want to capitalize on that male-female relationship. And if you're going through your steps and it's not there, you're going to be lacking. Sometimes you can watch a competition and you don't know what it is, but there is one couple who's doing all the right things, but they're not connected. There's no male-female, you know, and they're just two people out there. They're going to lose to a couple who can get that charisma between them going.
Choreography has to allow it to. Choreography has to give you a chance to do that. Sometimes your choreography can be with her there and me here, and I'm going 4 and 1, 2 and 3. I can't get any magic on this woman like I could if I was here. It just is a different electricity. I'm looking at a bunch of people I don't give a damn about, and the judges are looking at everybody, okay? So it's just, choreography has to have a lot. And sometimes you do want to play with the audience and win the audience. So I don't think you want to do that so much in rumba. And more guys will interview.
Oh, that's when it's coming up. That's when it's coming up. What does the judge look for in, by the way, rumba, you have, I mean, there are other dances possibly. Obviously, you want to get each character in each dance, you know, but I think we generally have the right idea there.
Does that answer the question for you people?
Is there any dance where both people are equally no good?
I think it's always a boy-girl relationship. It doesn't matter what dance you're in.
Like breakdancing, you know, there's no sexual.
Breakdancing?
What's that?
Breakdancing, the women look like men, they do the same thing.
I don't think it's a partnership thing at all. It's not really designed with partners in mind. You don't use each other to make what's happening happen.
What you're saying, the dance you're talking about, some girls look like men trying to dance. And that's what you're talking about, type of dance you're talking about. And I prefer a girl not to look like a man when doing that type of dance. I hate to see like a foot on the floor, some people get on the floor doing this kind of get-ups. I don't like.
Have you actually thought, when you watch ballet, I was trained in theatrical dancing, I've often thought that what was wrong with ballet is the girl is being all this charismatic thing to this proscenium audience and not to her partner. And the man's back there going, ballet doesn't often do that. Ballet is very self-centered to the audience. For the audience, it's very bravado and out, and the man is just a cream.
know, I think the way you look at your partner makes a big difference, especially in dances like rumba, and a different type of look at paso doble, a different, you know, depending on the character of the dance. Now, as far as the looks that you have towards the audience or towards the judges, that can also portray or convey a sense of confidence, a feeling of confidence. A lot of times, a person who's dancing will never, ever look at anybody in the audience or any judge because they are just so into their little routines and stuff that it's like they're afraid to look at somebody. But really, the couple that's dancing the best to me and gets the most out of me, looks at me and brings me into their dancing. If I'm sitting there part of a judge and a girl does a kind of a check and comes up to me and winks at me, does that, what am I going to do? That's if I'm sitting watching. If I'm judging, I don't look, right?
We're just really joking about being winked at and pointed at. I really think it does portray confidence. It's an element of feeling good about yourself, you know, and wanting to command the attention.
I love it because,
We know one.
I love that constipated look. And all this. No, the thing is, with the couples, right?
He does a whole ripple session on constipation, guys.
There was one time, yeah, what? They, like, I'm not going to mention it, but a couple I judge all the time and I was looking at, and this individual wasn't, I feel like the other girls were always looking and flirting and doing this and whatever, and I just had a competition with kids. I said, I wanted to tell this one this. And then it still went and I missed it and whatever. But then at a conversation, I said, you know, you should play a little bit more for the judges and wink and do this and do that and whatever. And I think I love it. I mean, when these girls get out there and they, like, I mean, this Sandy here, I mean, every time, you know what happens? Really, it makes me want to look. Because if they're throwing this at me and I'm not looking at this is really funny when you're judging her. Sandy, like, she'll throw this at you, and she'll go, and she'll do all this, or whatever. And then sometimes, what if you're not looking at her and she's doing all this? In my mind, what's going through her mind now that I'm not looking at her? So this here, this kind of thing, demands you to look at you.
First of all, your eyes are the windows of your soul, they say. And if you open your eyes, you're proud of what you're doing. If you ever notice when you have something you don't want to say to somebody, don't look right at them. And if you're doing something and you're doing it kind of looking down once in a while, it looks like you're not quite sure or don't quite like it. So I think it really does show confidence if you can stare them down, look right at them.
One thing and then next. I think the way I've always looked at it is that when I have the opportunity to dance towards Ron, that is my priority. When I'm in an open position where I have an audience in front of me, the audience. I want to try to perform to that audience. I'm like Vernon, I want to do a show. But for a long time, I put those judges like as if they were just wooden poles that weren't really people. I have them as not part of my audience in my mind. And so I was dancing to those people sitting out there. And then I started thinking, well, that's really not right. They really are part of my audience. And then I started looking at it that way, and it was easy. If there was a judge standing there and looking at me, it was easy for me to smile, because in my mind, he was my audience, you know?
I'll tell you what I don't like. I went to a competition. I don't like a rehearsed look. Like, I went to this one competition, and they were actually rehearsing that look in their face at each other, like, you know, that look at each other.
Or this one in Paso Doble.
You know, like, and when they were out there, the cha-cha competition was going on, and these couples were getting ready, like, for the jive or whatever, and they were rehearsing this look. And I have never, ever done that. I mean, whatever came from within that day, from that music or whatever.
I say one thing before we leave this. It doesn't happen by magic when you get out in front of an audience, though. Sometimes you have to smile at ashtrays and wink at fig trees in your studio to get it going. You have to practice that performing quality until it becomes a natural instinct. Okay, you really do. I'm not kidding when I say point at ashtrays and shake your shoulders towards a lamp or something. But it does.
I really do.
Yeah, it's true.
I agree 100%. And because what you're really doing is you're expressing the music. And if just you need an audience, physically people sitting there to express that music, then you're depending on somebody else. It's got to come from within, so you've got to be able to do it in an empty room.
Don't y'all love it on the coaching lesson? You see, well, we perform. Oh, I'll do it when I'm out there. How do you know you're going to do it when you're out there?
Nick?
Talking about this eye contact, I think there's really there's more than two, but for me there's two different ways. There's the way that there it is, that's the explosion of that eye contact, and the other one is kind of an inward eye contact. I think Sammy Stockman's last two partners are so great, their technique is fabulous, but they have one major difference, and that is their eye contact with the audience and with people. With Shirley, it was very much of power, here it is. With Barbara, it's come and get it. And that is where they differ so much.
Totally different emotion.
Okay, why do beards and mustaches, I guess it says don't dance. I guess that means not belong in the competition.
We're going to look around and see who's right.
It's obviously got a lot of flag about this beard.
Have you got a lot of hassle about your beard?
No, I'm just growing it.
Between the
I
Cut it
grow
off
the
today.
arms
Oh.
of it.
Right. I don't know.
It looks great on you too, it's a shame.
Yeah.
No, but some people say that like mustaches, they don't.
It tends to hide your expression. It tends to hide expression. I didn't have a mustache or a beard ever. I had, enough. I had to have something to come, so I grew sideburns. But it does tend to hide expression. If I did this to my face and turned sideways, you can't see the same thing that you can see if I have a chin, and it just tends to make it harder to see, and it tends to look untidy for some reason. Even the neatest tends not to look as good. It really does.
Okay, how important is it for...
Isn't it
oh,
for beards primarily, or beards and mustache?
I think well-trimmed mustaches are very flattering on some gentlemen. But I think beards definitely hide so much part of the expressive side of your face, and it tends to make your neck look short because it brings your collar up to your face. Look at him sitting there. I went through that. I wanted to grow a beard so bad, and couldn't do it. Every time Linda got pregnant, I grew a beard. It was great.
Okay, how important is it for partners to physically match height, build, coloring, etc.? Attitude. Well, attitude I think is important, but I certainly have seen some Mutt and Jeff partnerships. And that has been very successful.
I've seen some tweedledee tweedledum.
I think you obviously have an advantage if you're well matched. That is an advantage, but that doesn't mean that there is something that you can't overcome. I mean, if Colin James and Lena Mickelson are world's finalists right now, and if that is literally Mutt and Jeff. He is a tall string bean. She is a short, stocky fire hydrant. Any of you tell me like that? Oh, God.
Run the video back.
Get a kidding, startup. You better erase that one.
I swear, if we didn't tell you it does affect the look at times, we'd be lying, because it does.
In an individual person too, I see some gentlemen, I know one, especially from up in Canada, that one person, no matter what partner he's got, he has got an extra long body and shorter legs. And for some ungodly reason, this guy doesn't wear a costume that flatters his body, makes his body look longer. And that, to me, that is bad. Just because the kind of costume's in, doesn't mean it's in for you individually.
I think that, sorry.
You do have to know that if the height is more matched, it could be better for so many things, especially side-by-side movements, the volume would match. But it's not a bad thing, it's just not as good as it could be. But we'll deal with that through life. So that's not an insurmountable problem. But equally matched bodies are easier to look at. The volume's the same and things of that sort. But it doesn't mean that if you're not matched up height-wise that it's a devastation. It's not. It's just not as good as it could be. But we deal with that all the time. I like to.
It's like you.
20 years younger and have hair.
Okay. What is the difference between American Samba and International Samba?
Oh, God. I'll tell you what, I have a lot to say. If American Samba were a competitive dance now, there would be absolutely no difference. Because the technique, the timing, everything about it is the same. And if it were allowed to develop into a competitive dance, there would be no difference. That's what's happening to cha-cha. Except for the basics, there is no difference. Except for the leg action and the basic, the variation is a variation. So essentially, okay, I think if American-style professionals had a samba, there would truly be a difference. That's my opinion on it.
I don't know if many people know this, but I was at the National Council meeting, and they were talking about changing the dances in the American style at the USBC, so that the dances would be very, very different. Not dancing American samba, not dancing American cha-cha, but playing merengue and everybody's having a hard time. So I don't know if any of you knew that, but that's what they're thinking about for the future, to try and get the styles different.
Who's mainlining that? Mr. Montez?
Yes. He said he's going to do his national
I've
next
worked
year.
with that man so long, and I love that man. He is so truly everything you need to know. He'll get an idea, and he's got that idea that it should be changed. That it should be, that the fact that American cha-cha doesn't look like American cha-cha anymore, that swing doesn't look like swing, it looks like jive. Well, hell, look at jitterbug back then. Jitterbug, half the things y'all do in jive.
I see some gentlemen, I know one, especially from up in Canada, that one person, no matter what partner he's got, he has got an extra long body and shorter legs. And for some ungodly reason, this guy doesn't wear a costume that flatters his body and makes his body look longer. And that, to me, that is bad. You know, just because the kind of costume's in, doesn't mean it's in for you individually.
I think that, sorry.
You do have to know that if the height is more matched, it could be better for so many things, especially side-by-side movements, the volume would match. But it's not a bad thing. It's just not as good as it could be. But we'll deal with that through life. So that's not an insurmountable problem. But equally matched bodies are easier to look at. The volume's the same and things of that sort. But it doesn't mean that if you're not matched up height-wise that it's a devastation. It's not. It's just not as good as it could be. But we deal with that all the time. I like it.
It's like you.
20 years younger and have hair.
Okay. What is the difference between American Samba and International Samba?
Oh, God. I'll tell you what, I have a lot to say. If American Samba were a competitive dance now, there would be absolutely no difference. Because the technique, the timing, everything about it is the same. And if it were allowed to develop into a competitive dance, there would be no difference. That's what's happening to cha-cha. Except for the basics, there is no difference. Except for the leg action and the basic, the variation is a variation. So essentially, okay, I think if American-style professionals had a samba, there would truly be a difference. That's my opinion on it.
I don't know if many people know this, but I was at the National Council meeting, and they were talking about changing the dances in the American style at the USBC, so that the dances would be very, very different. Not dancing American samba, not dancing American cha-cha, but playing merengue and everybody's having a hard time. So I don't know if any of you knew that, but that's what they're thinking about for the future, to try and get the styles different.
Who's mainlining that? Mr. Montez?
Yes. He said he's going to do his national
I've
next
worked
year.
with that man so long, and I love that man. He is so truly everything you need to know. He'll get an idea, and he's got that idea that it should be changed. That it should be, that the fact that American cha-cha doesn't look like American cha-cha anymore, that swing doesn't look like swing, it looks like jive. Well, hell, look at jitterbug back then. Jitterbug, half the things y'all do in jive is a form of a jitterbug Lindy Hop kind of thing, just done at a pace. And I think the wrong way to deal with something is to run from it. Because when you try to do that, if you put merengue in, I'm not saying that there wouldn't be people that would stick with merengue and develop it into a dance. It would start to have tricks, gimmicks, slashes, and slides in it. West Coast swing is a wonderful dance. I think it would ruin itself inside of 3 years because it would no longer stay slick and easy and down. It would become flashy. It would start to get arm-oriented and big-oriented, and you lose that too. So you're not going to gain, you're going to lose. And I think that the way to do it is simply not mark what we don't want, keep it the way it is.
I would like to add to that I think if the people here who feel that way would see that they need to strengthen the dances that are being, the dances that are shaky right now are the swing and the cha-cha. So you need to go out there and prove that you're not going to do international hip action in American cha-cha. If you learned this weekend what they want to see, and if you do that, it's different. It's a different dance. But if you go out there and dance international cha-cha, it's going to be the same.
Understand what we're saying. You got to understand something. If I did a basic combination of American cha-cha, I'd want it to have this rolling action. It doesn't have to have minute steps. It doesn't have that dropping hip action. If I never did a basic, and all I did was 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Now, tell me what style that was. It was anybody's anything. So it was a rhythmic variation done in cha-cha that could be modern jazz, but it's when you do the basics and screw them up. Okay, it's when you do those basics and pop the legs and do check breaks that have become a feeling for an international cha-cha. I don't even think that's terribly wrong, but we've got to watch away from it because that's what's going to cause it to be misunderstood. But if you never do a basic, there is no difference. I think Forrest Vance does a cha-cha that he's just steered away from doing any basics, and he actually did very well in the competition doing the same cha-cha for both divisions.
Okay.
He doesn't have a basic in it. So what can you say about it?
Oh, anyhow.
Yeah, but along those lines, what if the judges are marking the couples that are doing international action?
Yeah.
I think the problem is having some point of information with the judges so that they will be better informed. Because I think until we start quit marking what we don't want to see, it's going to continue to happen because people will fashion themselves after the winners, the leaders.
If I could just add to that sometimes the international judges are the ones that are most offended by American couples doing international.
Yeah.
You want to see the difference. You don't want to see somebody doing something
But you
that's...
see, it's absolutely amazing to me that if Mickey and Debbie chose to do an international cha-cha, they're doing their stuff and really whipping it together, and they got together and they decided to go 2, 3, 4,
That'd be okay.
1, 2, and international, they think, that was innovative. Gee, that was rhythmic. You do one bloody, crappy little back break the wrong way in America, and someone has a heart attack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, though, don't you?
Let me say one thing real quick. When I was talking, I've told some of these people here also, I was at a competition one time when they had a West Coast swing competition. This is at a ballroom competition. The West Coast swing competition. And the couple that won was doing only jive, okay, which looks nothing like a West Coast swing, by the way. Okay? They're two entirely different dances. And I went up and asked that particular judge why that couple won and that kicked their eyes. And the answer to me is, I like their lines better. And I says, why do you leave me? But they weren't doing the dance. She goes, but the lines were better. I says, fine. Next time you have a waltz competition, I'll do foxtrot with better lines. I should win. That's how dumb that is to me. That's not a trained in that particular field. Maybe great in one other field, but not in that field.
Aren't you glad we don't just have one judge?
Lee has a question.
Let us know your opinions. Join the PDF.
Hey, I think that's a good note to stop on.
Special incentive. If you join now, you get the rest of the year free.
These statements that we make about American versus international, are you understanding where we're coming from? We're the ones that are training these people. And when they accuse these people that, like Joe and Jan, and people that we work with, Chuck and Benita and all like that, people we put a lot of time in, and the routines can be very aggressive. They can have the same elements as an international cha-cha. But we have paid close attention to when they do their basics and what happens to them. We really do. Chuck and Benita's bolero, Joe and Jan, or Penatella's bolero, whatnot, had a definitely different leg action than international rumba. And when they get accused of doing international rumba by other judges, I go absolutely berserk. I asked a judge why they said, oh, they're just too international Latin. Charlie, Jean Penatol. I said, what was international about their cha-cha? They did this once, she said. 2, 3, 4, and 7. She said, that's international. That's not. That was from a judge. Am I right? So, you know, we do have to educate the judging panel a bit too.
You know,
and unfortunately, it comes from the ones that aren't training the champions. They're just sitting back, taking on an impression. And you can grow old on the sidelines too.
One thing I do is if I see something or I hear something that doesn't go along with my thinking, at the next competition, because like I said, I go to all these things and I see them. The first thing I do, I go up to Vernon, the three of us get together, or Madeira, and I say to them, what is this? The perfect example is swinging the bell and cha-cha. Man, I revolted against that as sure as I was standing here. When they did 2, 3, no, it was rumba. What was they? How were they swinging?
Cha-cha did away.
They were just swinging that bell and they were going like this. I walked, this was to Vernon, I said, Vernon, we have to put a stop to that. I said, this is not our style, we don't even like what's going on. So I had a competition with this guy, when he says it, he says it. He said, yeah, he just wasn't going to mark it. I mean,
It's not, it was just a little bug that got loose. I think it was in Canada. I think it was stylized by a Canadian couple primarily. And Nina doesn't even like it that way. She likes the back used towards the hip, you know, that feeling too. Things do get going.
But like when I go to Montreal, and all those judges are there, like when we were talking about an international rumble today, I'll go over to Nina, and I'll ask her what, you know, it doesn't matter to me who the hell I ask. You know, I want to know, and they better, and if she comes up with that, I'm going to go get some of you kids and say, see?
Okay.
See?
Sorry, is it quick? Sorry, is it quick?
No, I was just going to ask, I don't know how everybody else does, but I think it's very informative if we can just go another 10 more minutes.
We have private lessons.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
We're going to dinner. Private.
Yeah, we don't,
We can go to
we can go till 5:15.
Okay.
They don't serve till 6:30 anyway. Really, they have, poor guys, we know they were
Take
chasing them.
a show of hands. How many want to stay for another few minutes? How many want to stay? How many want to go?
We'll stay.
I want to say one thing, you know, I think all you guys are great. I think we got so much talent in this country, and it really ticks me off when a Vernon and a Linda, or a Ron and Liz, or these people couldn't go over there and do what I thought they should do. And the thing is, I think we have to be a little bit different. I think, it's like I was saying to Liz, like in the song, your Vodafogos and your contractions and everything, no matter what the speed of the music is, you tend to do that. You're able to do that. But when cha-cha plays, okay, instead of always getting that 4 and 1, the first thing you hear is bells because of the speed of the music. Well, I would keep trying to get that hit movement because they're not doing it over there.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, we got to keep, if you guys can do what I feel is difficult, that contraction, that hip, that this and the Vodafogos, and you do it great. I love to watch you guys do that, to that speed of the music. Why can't we at least get that hip movement, you know, ticking that same way? Because they're not doing it over there, so why can't we be the one? And they always say cha-cha's our dance. You know, the Americans, they feel it that way, but yet, it's a shame
We
that...
don't want to get off on the European structure.
And you guys are so, you know, it really hurts when I have to judge you 6 or whoever makes the final, and you're all so wonderful in my eyes. I mean, I think you're great,
And you know, there are times when you all dance great. A given dance, for example, can just be, and you must all, once in a while, come off the floor and think, damn, that was good. Yeah, once in a while it just does, doesn't it? And you think that this, if I ever moved up in this dance, it should be tonight, because that to me felt terrific, and it doesn't happen. Sometimes you can move back, but it's just amazing. It's a tremendous responsibility. I lose sleep over it after some comps, but I made a rule to myself. When I was a competitor, and I went to Europe, first of all, I used to pay my way to Europe as a world representative, knowing that the best I could ever do over there was break into the final, maybe, in 6th place. If someone fell down and broke their leg, or didn't show up. It usually was a tight final, and you simply went there, and you hoped that you'd won the world championship as an American if you came sixth for a while. You know how it was. It was just so tight. And I made a resolution that as I stood back out of the six of so many of those European championships, and watched 3 of those 6 couples that, now I'm not an egotistical person, I'm a confident person, that I knew weren't as good as me and my partner and I, right? And I didn't think that was fair. And I said, I'm going to make a resolution that when I become an adjudicator of any quality, overseas, America, anything, I'm going to judge how people dance on that given night. I think it has a right to change. I think you should be able to be second in one comp, and fifth in another, fourth in the next, and third in the next, and first in one, and maybe third in the next. I think it could happen. I don't think once someone wins, that's their place and it belongs to them. I really don't. And I try to watch it that way every time I judge.
Nick?
I agree with Vernon with what Sam was saying. Probably up until just recently in England, that's been a trait. That the champion would be champion, and that would be it. Every person was going. Second couple would get the second going. British, the last 2 or 3 years has been changing, especially with the retirement of the champions. This year in the British, Mr. Donny Burns won the first 2 dances. The crowd were not going for him. Suddenly his performance in my eyes and those other people's eyes started to slip a little bit, and the other 3 dances were taken by Sammy and by David sitting underneath with us. So there it was showing a change that the audience was affecting the dancing wasn't as good, and affecting the judges.
Yet in Japan, wasn't that a different story? It was quite a story.
Also in this country, at Mr. Sodano's competition, there was a 3-way tie for the Latin Championship. And I don't think any couple had all firsts from one judge. I think every judge marked a different person first in whatever.
I don't think it's because judges are confused. I think it's because they're trying to be fair. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Okay, Lisa?
Some comments were made earlier about sometimes the choreography does not lend toward being able to use the body rhythm the way you were saying. How do we go about getting American choreographers that we can use American choreography too? They're not always available to us.
It's funny. Choreography is a knack that you have, and some of you have it, and some of you know that feeling. And I think the secret to good choreography is connection. One thing has to have what I jokingly call gazinta. One thing gazinta, another. And I think choreography has to have that. It also has to constantly bring the characteristic of the dance into it. I think as often as you can get hip action in a hip action dance, I just think it has to be considered in choreography. I was working with some of the couples last night. The choreography, as good as it was, didn't lend itself to the bolero leg action. And the choreography was not faulty, it wasn't bad, it just was not bolero leg action, bolero feeling wasn't a part of it. They were pretty steps that they were allowing the couple to relax their legs. So it has to be thought of at the input. So I guess if you've been told that enough, that it really should, don't change anything on one comment. Y'all have all learned that. One comment shouldn't throw you off of where you are, but if it's something you're hearing pretty regularly, maybe it's something you should look at. And maybe you should ask for help with someone that you feel can help cure it. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Well, maybe the partial answer to that is things like this. First of all, you're not going to know if you're not
commercial.
Really, one of the goals of this camp was to define the differences between American and international style and to improve both of them and to get input from people who judge both styles and work with both styles.
How do you feel you have a better understanding of the two?
Definitely. Just by watching
you hope you do, because you demonstrated it. I hope you know.
Let me also say that when you do get this knowledge, like you're hopefully getting this weekend, that you will take it and input it into your own dancing. You can't depend your whole life on someone choreographing your routines and having rhythm in it. You've got to feel when you leave here that you know a little bit more about dancing. And if your choreography you don't think is rhythmic, then you have to do something about it.
The magic ingredient in choreography is courage. You've got to have the courage to try something or to get up and do it. You tend to think that everything you do is not good enough because it's easier when someone else gives it to you. It's new, it's fresh, and you like learning. Sometimes I'll choreograph an entrance, and if it's for Linda and myself, I have the hardest time choreographing for myself. It's much better when I see two people and can draw a picture with two bodies. Because sometimes it seems silly because I couldn't see it. Sometimes you have to have the courage to give something a try long enough that it starts to work too.
I was going to say something about, you know, we have so many professionals here represent a good variety of people. How come, I'm not understanding why the big shots, I'm saying big shots, people who are in charge of how we do something, you're complaining about putting meringue into the hairstyle, which I don't agree with also. Why then are they doing it if there are so many of us who don't believe that? Why don't we vote somewhere?
Unfortunately, you know, Fortunately, if people become just organizers, that doesn't include Sam. He's not just an organizer. He's an organizer who's a very involved dance coach. Okay? When you become just an organizer and just a person who's at the head of an organization, you do lose touch with the meter, what the hell's going on. And you tend to make decisions. I know the USBC thing has this thing of having to appease independents, Fred Astaire's, Arthur Murray's, and every other little faction that can be. And I think that for some reason they have got it in their idea, that their mind, that the way to preserve American style is to change the dances. And you know what? I think American style is getting worth watching now. It's not a hiding place for bad dancers anymore.
I agree.
Fabulous.
It's the wrong time to stop.
It's a wrong time.
Who do we write to?
PDF.
Just say,
Honestly.
yeah, I say something. No, there's not one person. There's a national council that makes the rules that we abide by in this country for competitive dance. The national council is composed of organizations who send representatives, and from that they make decisions, just like our congressional system. It's like a parliamentary system. Through those delegates, those decisions, they vote and they make the decision. You have to belong to some type of organization. Voice to your representatives who will carry that, put it on the agenda, and it'll have to be discussed. We have gotten several things on our agenda from the Professional Dancers Federation, put on the agenda, brought up at the meeting, and at least discussed.
We need to help with that.
Well, the PDF actually, again an advertisement, but the PDF is seen in the light as the voice of the competitors, and literally the NDCA has literally said during meetings, how does the PDF feel? Because there is a voice now, but we need to have the forum and we need to have the people in the PDF to say what they want.
You're all important, because if you're not a finalist now or not a champion now, you're hoping to either be a top-class competitor or a damn good coach or teacher someday. So you are a part of what this is all about. We're a part of why it's where it is. You're a part of where it's going. So you've got to have some input too. And don't let us railroad your opinions. Your opinions are important, whatever they are.
I think there's an NDCA meeting in January. The PDF has 2 representatives going. We can actually have here a small PDF meeting tomorrow night and just get a little bit of a feeling for, which obviously seems to be what you want, but that we can give our representative that information. Okay, I want to say one more thing. Anyone has a question? I think the best thing we can do right now is reschedule our private lessons. How do you
If
feel?
I can go the hour until 6:15.
Sure, that's great.
Or 20 after. We have only until 8 for practice session, do we?
We have lessons at 7.
Yeah.
I think really, honestly, I don't know how you people feel, but if you want, we can stay, we can stay even a few more minutes. We've got some more questions here. We can do that. This is what camp is for, this group, okay? This group that we have here is what it's for. So, how do you feel about staying even a few more minutes and answering a few more questions?
Sure. One more question.
Yeah?
One more.
Anyhow.
Okay, I really think that they should have jive in the semi or all rounds, because it's a dance that, when you go to Europe, you do compete in every round. And I think, first of all, I think it's sort of unfair for a couple to have to work at it and not do it, and for a couple that maybe doesn't work at it as much because they don't make the final. When they do get there, it's always going to be a weak dance for them because they haven't worked at it so much. I really think that jive gets sort of left behind, and I think if it's part of it, it ought to be in all around. If it's not a part of it, then we should leave it out.
You know, being an organizer of a comp, at one time I didn't have Beanie's waltz in the final, and Debbie came over to me. And she said, I would go, I'm not feeling, Debbie said, how come you don't have Beanie's waltz in the final? And I, to be honest with you, and I could judge all the time, but I said, I didn't think of it. All right, it was too late to put it in there. So after she said something to me, okay, I put it in. Now, these couples would say to me, well, why don't we have jive in the 12th? I put it in, but here I'm thinking, well, I want to give them a break, a rest, and just let them do it in the final. But if that was what they wanted, I myself would change it to that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I hate people interrupting. I have another question. We were talking about the judges only have 10 seconds.
Well,
Right.
Everybody's going to hate when I say this.
that's an estimation.
I really hate when I say this. But we have to dance both songs in England 6 rounds. So why don't couples have to dance the full record here? I mean, it'll give the judges longer time to evaluate their marking.
Well, in Ohio,
I mean, it's just going to be
that
the
was
most
the TV.
in the end, yeah.
You did more than the whole record.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, to be honest with you, the one round I'd like to have on is the semifinal.
The
I tell you
semifinal,
what, when you're the breaker-inner, being 6th out of that 12, being the next one in, can make or break what you do for the whole next year. The whole attitude. That's like winning a competition to get in that final and you've been on the outside of it.
in Cherry Hill in July, I turned around to the committee when the 12 was going on and they said pick 6, and they were giving me a minute and whatever. I turned around to the committee and I said, can I pick 8? I said, I mean, there are 2 people that I think should be in there, and I have to leave them out. Well, of course, you know what it is. And this is while the competition's going on. I'm losing my 10 seconds while I'm running. But, you know, and they said, you know, no, it's the same. Of course, I knew they were going to say
There's
that.
a lot of talk about the manner in which competitions are going to be held in the future. Over in Europe, they're looking into this fact of having part of the competition be a basic element in competition, as well as having a medley of dances that you're allowed to dance solo as an exhibition, so you do get to focus on each individual couple in some manner. And that exhibition dance and the basic element is computed in with your total marks for the placement. So the whole thing is being still debated because of adding length to competitions, because it's so many different times to dance. It hasn't been decided yet. But I sat at the judges' table in Japan, taking John Lockey's place at the World Cup with Rudy Trouts and Espen Solberg and all the people that are running competitions in their own countries, Marcel de Reich, and they're thinking of trying out a new format, and if it works, introducing it as the standard way of competing, so that we do have a chance to look at each one of you individually in a competition.
I think it's a shame that maybe we don't start that in our country.
Well, why don't we do that?
Because other countries copy us for a change.
Can I ask you competitors,
I'd ask Debbie something first.
Wait, could you just, wouldn't you like to dance by yourself?
yeah, sure. How did you like, okay, finish it, just finish it.
Are you saying that you wanted to make sure you dance long enough? You're saying that sometimes you feel you don't dance long enough?
No, I'm saying judges, the complaint I've heard from the judges is they don't have long enough time to evaluate everybody on the floor. They have 2 seconds here, 6 seconds, they have to see everybody, especially in the semi-final like tournament, so there's 12 couples, and he has a minute and a half to
Really,
see
the
12
semifinal
couples.
division.
So why is it, I mean, that's not good for us, you know.
I tell you the
but-
truth. Now, this is an awful thing to say to you people who are regular finalists. Sometimes I don't see much of your dancing until the final. I just know, I check to see if you're in form, and if you're dancing well, I really try to devote as much of that minute and a half in the semifinal to the ones that are trying to get into the final. So you're dancing your buns off out there, and you can't afford not to, because if one of us sees you not dancing well, we might leave you out or might move you down when you're in the final. So it's really it's an unusual. I don't know what to say about it.
How did you
Yeah,
compare
you know what I
it
mean?
like the idea in Ohio when you did 30 seconds? Now, this was not my idea with TV, but when you did the 30 seconds of basic and then the minute of your routine, because I got loads of letters from people saying, I mean, I got one letter, bravo, it was what, finally, it was wonderful to see the professionals come down to listen to this hour level. They do basic dancing. I mean, that's the letters I got.
I think if they're told far enough ahead and say when they're going to break, this many measures, and they can break into it, I think it's not going to be traumatic, and exhibition dance was figured in as the sixth dance in the competition. You dance one dance by yourself. And you could do anything you want at the entrance, anything you want on the exit, and then the meat of your dance. And it was computed in as the next dance, so it was computed all together. It was interesting the way it came out, too.
Doesn't the difference, though, between Europe and here have to do with all of our competitions are geared toward our students and not toward the professional as far as the major amount of time for the week? I mean, doesn't that have a lot
Allowing
to
enough
do with how
time to
much?
do it.
We have all professional.
I mean, if you go to England, you spend 4 days watching the professionals dance.
Well,
You know, you come here.
you ask an
4 days
organizer,
watching
though,
the
and if they, some of the pros just use that time as a time to use and work on their own dancing. Other teachers, I can look around here, bring 6 and 8 and 10 students. But Sammy's column, for example, if he had to rely on the professionals in the professional Latin division as his major income, the income is division. And that's because y'all don't bring a lot of students, and I understand why.
But you know something, my whole goal for these professionals, my whole goal is someday I'm going to have a $50,000 first place. And I would love to give like they do in golf and tennis, you know, from 24th place all the way up. And you know, I give the same equal amount to the internationally American because I hate to go to comps and see, this is another thing, if I was an American professional, I wouldn't go to these comps.
I hate it.
Where they give international higher money than the Americans. You guys, all you guys were equally as hard as each other, and at my time, as you noticed, it was equal all the way down, which Ohio's next year. I know everybody.
I like when they have an open division, open to the world, and you pay the winner of that more than they pay the close. And the reason they put it in is because international competitors can, as long as their ass looks down, they're going to win. You know, so.
One more question,
Okay, I'm interested in competing in.
Scratch that.
Oh, it's on there. I didn't say anything bad yet. I have been sitting on the fence.
Not like
I can't wait to call in this.
what was that one about Colin James's car?
When you go to Blackpool, you're going to keep your mouth shut.
Sure, what it is,
I'm interested in competing and have a partner. We've never done this before. Where do we start?
It's a wonderful car.
After they join the PDF.
You join the PBS, then comes to the hospital, and then comes the seminar.
Oh, really? I think in this country, we were just talking about a subject which I think is a good subject to bring up, and that is the student-teacher competition. I think that there's a lot of that in this country, and that if you're a professional and if you're working with students, you should be able to get a lot out of the competitions with your students as far as your own dancing. But if you're beginning with a new partner, God, you just get out and put the choreography together. I believe, get your choreography and get out on the floor. You're going to have to pay your dues no matter what. If you want to wait 6 years till when you are in perfect form and you know you're going to be able to beat everybody by that point, then forget it. You've got to get out there. You know, there's a lot of people who say, well, we should have our technique exactly before we get out to the competition floor. Forget it. Competing is part of your learning experience as far as I'm concerned.
First time I got on the floor, someone said you a fan, I'd have gone. I really didn't. I just thought I kept, I could get Beverly up a couple of times and stay real busy. They wouldn't know. I choreographed. There's a couple that's dancing together now professionally. When I saw him as an amateur and he danced with his professional partner, Pro Am, I just kept his routine so busy you couldn't tell he didn't know what he was doing at the time. And then eventually he learned how to dance as he's seasoned as, as a competitor. But I think you do have to just get in and play, get in the ballpark and slug it out.
I think there's a lot of people who, as I mentioned the other day, are waiting for the perfect partner, and they're waiting for their complete choreography to be done in every dance, and then waiting for their costumes are absolutely perfect, better than everybody else's, and then waiting for they feel great about every measure of every bar. It's never going to come unless you get out there and start doing
And
it.
everybody wants a partner that's a little bit better than them, they can work towards, and doesn't always happen.
And it's a very difficult thing to sit and to watch a couple like Sandy and Rick and Donna and Wayne and all these top Latin couples that are here, and to be back at the beginning beginning, and you have to, those couples can do one of two things. They can drive you backward into the wall, or they can inspire you to go forward. You're not going to start out looking like they did. They're not an overnight success either. They work their buns off for it. And they're still, I mean, who knows when the apex of what they're working for, the U.S. Championship, is going to come into their pocket. You know, they're hoping as soon as possible, but that's what their goal is, and they stick it out. But you can't let excellence, you know, when I go to a show, sometimes the excellence of a show motivates me momentarily, and then somehow there's a little moderate set of depression. I don't know if it's depression or what, but I'm in such awe about it that I tend to pull back and say, well, gee, I could never do that. You know, like ice skating tends to do that to me. It's extremely good theater does that to me. And I think you people that are newer can't say, well, I'll never be like that. You've got to use them as an inspiration, because they at one time were exactly where you are.
Oh,
Exactly.
wait until you see.
Oh, God.
Wait until
Wait a minute.
tomorrow. It's really good for this camp because it's true. You've got the best here. They're here. You've also got some fabulous people who are just starting and up and coming. And I would hate to see those up and coming people feel like, okay, I'm not going to do this because there's this fabulous person dancing next to me. That fabulous person was up and coming. They weren't born dancing. You know, you have to work at it. You have to take the chance of getting out on that floor next to that person and not caring. You know, everybody thinks everybody's looking at you. You'd be surprised if you looked around this room, how many of you really know where other people are sitting? How many of you really know what other people are wearing? Or what color their hair is, or what color their eyes are? You don't really notice other people, or people don't notice you as much as you think they do. You think they see that your hair is messy today, or that you got a rip in your pants, or that well, they might see that. Okay, they might see those. Okay, my shoes are untied, but no, they're not noticing. And that practice night the other night, they are not noticing that you're standing in the corner going over the merengue basic. They are not. They're doing their own thing. They're looking at their partner. And you really need to be aware of that it's your ball game. You know, it's not theirs. Each one of us is unique. And I'll tell you, we have seen unbelievable success stories, and Vernon told one about Beverly the other day. You know, so
You're gonna realize it when you see these.
It's on video now.
During that tomorrow
well, this question right here will be answered tomorrow. What's the difference between Latin dancing now and years ago? We'll see it tomorrow. How much of the score is really based on the basics? I think we talked about that.
There is no score. There is no score. It's a comparison like a beautiful piece of cheesecake and black forest cake and linen meringue pie. You choose the one that tempts you the most. There is some element of what's right and wrong involved, but we don't score you. We just simply say, I think they, for whatever reason, they're doing better than that couple. There's
Okay.
no score.
Good. Rumba is the dance of love. More and more routines are beginning to get very sexual and too physically descriptive. Where did the beauty of love and romance go? Is all this really necessary?
Just watch my dancing. That's sexy enough to do this. Is it sexy enough? I'm getting touched. It's slow down.
I think that it says it's too physically descriptive.
Yes, I know.
Oh, yeah, we know what she's
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
You know, I think there's something to listen to in that. I made the issue that putting your hands on the girl, like down the front of her, tends to look a little bit rude, as opposed to, for example, if Liz were in a line here, she was in a back line of some sort, okay, and she stretched back, okay, and if I did this, and I see some of y'all do that, and that's done a lot. Ladies like to do that. See, and I've expressed my emotion towards her without putting my hands on her, so I think I think you have to keep taste in mind. We want to think that you're making love, not screwing.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that idea. You'll get my mark.
All right, just put a bow on it.
I guess there's obviously different opinions.
I think that slightly raucous-looking things in cha-cha can be fun. I think cha-cha is a little bit of a body dance. It has a little bit of a hippie feeling, and that I do think rumba, you have to temper it with all. I think that what makes rumba seductive or not is the manner in which you do it too. I think it could be seductive in a romantic way, or it can be rude.
Okay, can I have one thing to say on this subject? I would like to take the example of your class the other day, your rumba class, right? And Sam, I really believe my feeling is, Sam, the way he is in this atmosphere, like say if he was teaching that step, he wants to get a rise out of you. So he wants
It is nothing worse than going to a class that is so dry that the technique is here. You can do the same things and still have a fun with dancing. And that's important. A lot of people lose having fun when they dance. You should have fun.
And also, you know what I absolutely can't stand is if I see I think what he's trying to get is a feeling, of you to feel something, what you're getting at. I honestly can't stand if you're going up to the man or the man's coming up to you and you go, or you go stand in the girl's body and it's like, there's nothing to that.
And also, some time ago, Shirley was dancing with Sammy. She played up a movement where he was facing her and she slid down the front of his body and she just made the mistake of turning her face to face him. He not only looked rude, but there was a big lipstick. So, you can never forget it. He danced the rest of his rumba with his And the thing is, even if somebody was standing there and the girl did that, okay, if she went down the side of me like this and she turned her